Hey guys, tonight we are slipping into the chaos of an ordinary morning in ancient Athens. Picture it you're not waking up to the gentle ping of a phone alarm, no snooze button, no cozy memory foam mattress. Instead, you're on a straw-stuffed mat that pokes you in all the wrong places. And the alarm clock is the sound of donkeys braying outside, mixed with neighbors arguing about whose goat chewed through whose roof tiles again. Already you can feel it. You're not going to survive this day. Honestly, half of you would have quit before breakfast, so before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And please, drop a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is. I can't tell you how much joy it brings me knowing someone is drifting off to sleep halfway across the world while I ramble about goats and roof tiles. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The sun pushes its way through the cracks of wooden shutters, spilling a harsh light across your face. There's no blackout curtain to rescue you, no snooze option to bargain with. You drag yourself upright, rubbing sleep from your eyes, and immediately feel the scratch of straw sticking to your skin. Ancient bedding has all the charm of a haystack after a rainstorm, rough, itchy, and guaranteed to remind you how spoiled you are with your fitted sheets and soft duvet. You shuffle your feet into sandals, if you can call them that. Leather straps that dig into your skin and soles barely thicker than a slice of stale bread. Forget memory foam, forget gel inserts. This is the footwear equivalent of walking on crackers. You step outside into the narrow streets, where Athens greets you with a blast of warm air. It smells faintly of smoke from yesterday's cooking fires, fresh bread baking in clay ovens, and a generous undertone of sewage drifting through the drains. It's the kind of aroma that says, "Good morning." You're alive, barely. As you blink against the sunlight, you realize the city is already wide awake. Vendors drag carts of vegetables to the market, shouting prices before they even arrive. Children dart between alleyways, chasing each other with laughter that's equal parts joyful and deafening. A potter trundles by with clay jars stacked on his back like he's auditioning for the world's worst balancing act. You stand there, groggy, overwhelmed, and probably wishing you could teleport to a coffee shop. Too bad coffee won't even arrive here for another 1,000 years. Instead, your first mission is simple: water. In Athens, there's no sink to turn on, no Brita filter waiting in the fridge. You've got to walk to the public fountain, amphora balanced on your shoulder, and fight for space among your neighbors. And yes, fight is accurate. The fountain is more than a water source. It's a gossip hub, a complaint department, and sometimes a wrestling match disguised as polite society. Women in long kittens argue about whose husband came home late. Old men lean on walking sticks, telling stories you suspect are made up, and someone inevitably accuses someone else of cutting in line. The water itself cool, clear, flowing from marble spouts is almost an afterthought. You wedge yourself in, pretending not to eavesdrop while actually listening to every single word. That's when you catch the strangest thing. Apparently, someone's goat has eaten the laundry off a neighbor's roof. Yes, even goats appreciate a fine tunic. You tell yourself it's none of your business, but honestly, it's the best entertainment you'll get before noon. Historians still debate whether Athenians exaggerated their daily dramas or whether life really was this chaotic. Personally, you're convinced both are true. Amphora finally filled. You stagger back home, shoulders aching from the weight. And here's the kicker. You've done all this without breakfast. Your stomach grumbles in protest. Forget smoothies, avocado toast, or drive-through hash browns. You've got barley bread waiting for you, hard as a rock unless you soak it in watered-down wine. Yes, that's the morning drink of choice, wine cut with water, so weak it makes grape juice look rebellious. You chew slowly, pretending it tastes like something more exciting, but mostly it tastes like survival. Sitting there, you can't help but laugh at the absurdity. You, with your 21st century cravings for oat milk lattes, are surviving on what feels like prison rations. And yet, for Athenians, this is normal. This is life. A full belly is a luxury, and your watered wine is both hydration and social glue. In a strange way, it works. You're awake, you're alive, and you're part of the morning rhythm, just as you start to feel a hint of contentment. A neighbor pokes his head in with news. A heated debate is already brewing in the agora. Men are gathering, voices raised, ideas flying like sparks. The whole city is buzzing, because in Athens, politics is less about quiet policy and more about shouting until someone gives up. You sigh, nibbling the last crumb of bread, realizing your day has only just begun and you already need a nap. But no one naps here. Well, some philosophers might sneak one under a tree while pretending to think deep thoughts, but you have to keep moving. The morning has claimed you, and ancient Athens isn't slowing down just because you're used to air conditioning and iced coffee. You sling your amphora aside, straighten your tunic, and head for the noise, already wondering if you'll make it to noon without collapsing. And just like that, you're in it. The heartbeat of a city that thrives on arguments, sweat, and barley bread. It's loud, it's uncomfortable, and it's endlessly fascinating. And you, dear traveler, are right in the middle of it. Surviving dash, barely dot, you carry your empty clay jar through the narrow street, the air already buzzing with the chatter of neighbors. The fountain is the beating heart of this quarter, though it smells less like roses and more like damp stone, splashed sandals, and the faint sourness of yesterday's wine emptied carelessly nearby. You arrive just in time to see the line already forming, women balancing amphorae, children squabbling, an old man coughing theatrically as if to remind everyone he still exists. You squeeze in, pretending you're invisible, but every elbow seems to find your ribs anyway. The water arcs from a spout shaped like a lion's head, not majestic so much as perpetually drooling. You wait your turn, listening to the symphony of voices. Gossip about a neighbor's son caught sneaking olives. Complaints about the price of figs. Speculation about whether the gods truly listen when half the city prays for rain. You discover quickly that the fountain is less about thirst and more about stories. Words flow faster than water. A woman beside you lowers her jar with a sigh, muttering about her husband's lazy brother who eats more bread than he works for. Another brags that her cousin once saw Pericles himself walk past, though in truth it might have just been some other man with a decent cloak. Accuracy, you see, is optional here. You lean closer just to catch the rhythm of it, voices overlapping like weaving threads. Someone mentions a new law requiring citizens to fetch water at set times, but then admits no one follows it. Someone else laughs too loudly, declaring that the fountain is the only honest place left. Because at least here you know you'll be jostled and lied to at the same time. You smile, half hidden, knowing they're not wrong. The children dart between legs, splashing each other until a sharp-eyed woman snaps at them. They scatter like pigeons, only to return moments later with even bigger grins. You wonder whether the gods designed them to be annoying, or whether that's just their gift to humanity. A small dog laps at a puddle by your feet. Nobody minds. In fact, some pour a little water into a broken bowl for it. An act of kindness in a city where generosity usually comes in the form of borrowed bread and borrowed patience. Here's a detail that doesn't make it into the heroic statues in Athens. Some fountains were actually funded by wealthy benefactors who got the honor of attaching their names in stone. A kind of ancient sponsorship deal, if you like, brought to you by Nicias and Sons for all your hydration needs. One inscription even boasted more about the donor's family lineage than the water itself. Priorities, right? Finally, your turn. You crouch, holding your jar steady as the stream fills it. The cool splash on your hands feels like a blessing, though your shoulders ache from the weight you're about to carry home. You glance up and notice how everyone's eyes linger on you just for a beat, because the fountain is also a stage. Who comes, who waits, who talks to whom, all noted, all whispered about later over bread. Privacy, here, is as scarce as fresh figs in winter. You realize this place is more than utility. It's a bulletin board without parchment, a stage without props, a confessional without priests. News of wars, marriages, deaths, scandals, they all trickle out alongside the water. Historians still debate whether such gossip really influenced politics or merely filled idle afternoons. But you can feel the power humming in it. A word dropped at the fountain could travel faster than a messenger on horseback. Someone asks if the Spartans will ever attack again, and another scoffs that Spartans don't need to attack, they just scare everyone by existing. A ripple of nervous laughter follows. You notice the way humor mixes with dread here, like watered down wine. Then a boy about 12 slips while carrying a jar twice his size. It crashes, water soaking the dust, shards shining like teeth in the sun. For a heartbeat, silence. Then a chorus of scolding, his mother clutching her head, a neighbor tisking dramatically, another woman smirking that at least the ground got a drink. The boy shrugs, already plotting how to convince his father it wasn't his fault. You bite your lip not to laugh. The fountain itself gurgles, steady, uncaring. It has seen countless such scenes. Arguments, flirtations, reconciliations. Even weddings began here, with couples fetching water together as a kind of promise. Imagine proposing with a jug in hand and your sandals wet. Romantic in a very practical way. And so you hoist your own jar, arms straining, back straightening, pretending you are stronger than you feel. Around you, voices continue, water splashes, sandals slap on stone. Life, messy and loud, flows just like the stream from the lion's mouth. You take a careful step back, weaving through the press of bodies. Already the next jar slides into place, the next story begins, the next rumor starts its journey. You breathe in, slowly, letting the cool damp air soften your lungs. This, too, is survival, waiting, carrying, listening, pretending you belong, and as you walk away, the fountain fading behind you, you know it will still be there tomorrow, ready to give water and words in equal measure. You adjust the weight of the jar as you make your way home, shoulders burning, arms shaking in a rhythm you'd rather no one notice. Each step feels longer than the last, but eventually the doorway of your cramped house greets you, shaded by a crooked wooden beam. Inside, the light is soft, filtered through woven reeds, and the smell of yesterday's ashes clings to the air. Your reward for surviving the fountain: breakfast. If the word makes you think of golden toast or eggs sizzling in butter, please lower your expectations immediately. What waits for you here is humbler, rougher, and, let's say, nutritiously beige. On the table sits a small loaf of barley bread, its crust cracked like old pottery. Beside it, a jug of watered wine thinner than your patience. But at least it doesn't taste like the fountain. You tear the bread and it resists, dense as a bad idea. A crumbly piece lands in your lap. You pop it into your mouth anyway, chewing slowly, pretending it's crunchy granola. No sugar rush, no milk poured from a cheerful carton, just grit between your teeth and the faint sourness of fermentation. Somehow it fills you, though not in a satisfying way. More like stuffing cloth into a crack to keep the wind out. Children scuttle around, demanding their share. They chew with the same stoic expressions you do, as if trained from birth to treat food as duty rather than delight. A neighbor drops by, leaning in without knocking. Privacy is for later centuries. She talks about a goat that refused to be milked this morning, as if it were headline news. You nod, your jaw still working through the bread. Here's a tidbit for you. Barley was the backbone of the Greek diet, cheaper and hardier than wheat. In fact, athletes in the Olympic Games were nicknamed barley eaters. Not quite as glamorous as world champion, but hey, at least it stuck. Some households roasted the barley before grinding it into a coarse flour, mixing it with water or wine into a paste called maza. Think of it as the ancient version of instant oatmeal, except it took hours and had the consistency of damp clay. The watered wine you sip is weak, almost shy. Children drink it too. Though don't picture a table of tiny drunkards, it's diluted enough to be safer than water, which often carried more surprises than you wanted in your cup. You swirl it, pretending to be sophisticated, but really you're just trying to forget the flavor of yesterday's reheated stew. At the table, conversation drifts lazily. Someone mentions the rumor from the fountain about new taxes. Another mutters about a neighbor who hasn't cleaned the street outside his home in weeks. Even meals here are half nourishment, half news exchange. You listen, half amused, as if breakfast came bundled with free gossip. No subscription required. There's a knock at the door, more like a shove. Really, and a young man enters, carrying a scroll under his arm. He boasts he can read it, though when pressed, he only recites lines from memory. Nobody calls him out. Pride is breakfast food too. Your stomach settles, though not joyfully. Bread, wine, chatter, dust. The essentials of existence. You imagine, fleetingly, the luxury of honey spread over warm bread, a delicacy reserved for those wealthier than you. Historians still debate how common such sweet treats actually were among ordinary Athenians, but in this house it remains the stuff of daydreams. As you wipe the crumbs from your lap, you realize how little choice you have. No menu, no substitutions, just barley, water, maybe olives if you're lucky. Yet somehow everyone endures. Maybe resilience is baked into the bread itself, along with the occasional pebble that cracks a tooth if you're careless. You lean back, jar of water safely stored, belly filled enough to face the day. The air is warming already, sunlight creeping in sharper lines across the floor. Outside, voices rise, footsteps echo, the city calling. The fountain, the bread, the wine, they're not luxuries, but they're survival. The quiet rhythm that keeps Athens humming. You brush your hands, gather your thoughts, and step toward the street again, ready to lose yourself in the noisy pulse of what waits beyond your doorway. The moment you push back the crooked doorframe, and step outside. The city seems to breathe louder. The little side street funnels you toward the beating heart of Athens, and you find yourself swept into the slow-moving river of sandals, donkeys, and voices. The air is a tangle of smells: charcoal smoke, sun-baked fish, olive oil warming in clay jars, and that unmistakable hint of goat. You tell yourself it's charming, but really it's just persistent. Soon the path widens, and you emerge into the agora, the grand marketplace. Forget sleek grocery aisles or neatly stacked apples under fluorescent light. Here, stalls lean against each other like tired drunks. Cloth awnings flap in the breeze, and sellers shout at a volume that would get them banned from modern customer service. You take one cautious step, and instantly the noise presses in. Fresh olives, fine pottery. Buy my figs, the sweetest in the city. You're shoved left by a woman balancing a basket on her head, right by a boy chasing a runaway chicken. The bird darts between legs like it's late for a meeting. You're laughing before you realize it, partly because you're still alive. You imagine this is the ancient version of being caught in a Black Friday rush, except no one's fighting over flat-screen TVs. Just salt and onions. A potter waves you over, holding up a cup painted with tiny figures. He explains proudly that the design shows a heroic battle scene, though from your angle it looks suspiciously like two stickmen arm. He names a price, his voice swelling with drama. You nod politely, retreating before he convinces you that cracked clay is an heirloom all around. Coins clink, bargains buzz, and the rhythm of trade thrums louder than the cicadas. You spot a stall piled with figs, so purple they glow against the dust. A man picks one up, squeezes it, frowns, and squeezes another. The seller swats his hand away with theatrical outrage. You're tempted to buy some, but your coin pouch feels suspiciously light, as if even the thought of fruit drained it. Somewhere nearby, a group of men argue about grain prices. Their voices rise, each trying to outshout the other. It's less debate and more who can imitate a thunderstorm best. You drift closer, curious, and quickly regret it. The discussion spirals into politics, and before long, you've heard 3 conspiracy theories about the Navy, 2 insults about a magistrate's haircut, and at least 1 threat to take the matter to court. You slip away before someone demands your opinion. You pause by a fishmonger's table, the catch glistening under the sun. The smell is sharp, insistent, reminding you that refrigeration is still several thousand years away. Flies hover greedily, undeterred by the seller's half-hearted fan made of reeds. Still, customers crowd in because salted fish is a treasure-cheap protein, long-lasting and mercifully filling. You wrinkle your nose but watch anyway, amused by the seller swearing that his fish practically jumped onto the boat themselves this morning. Sure, they did. A lesser-known truth whispers beneath the chaos. The agora isn't just about food and pots. It's the city's gossip engine. News travels faster here than a modern group chat, fueled by merchants who trade stories as eagerly as they trade wares. One man insists a famous sculptor has been caught cheating on his patron. Another swears a new law is coming that will limit imports. Historians still argue about how accurate these agora rumors were, but to the crowd, accuracy doesn't matter. It's entertainment, and cheaper than theater tickets. You duck into a shaded corner where a man grinds herbs. He pounds them with steady rhythm, releasing scents of thyme and mint that cut through the market's heavier odors. He smiles, offering a pinch of crushed leaves to smell. You inhale, surprised by the freshness, like a breath of countryside hidden in the city's chest. For a moment, You forget the sweat sticking to your back. Children dart between stalls, begging scraps, laughing as they weave through the crowd. One nearly topples into your legs, grins with missing teeth, and vanishes before you can react. You laugh again, shaking your head. Life here is relentless, chaotic, noisy, but undeniably alive. As the sun climbs higher, the agora grows even busier. You step carefully between donkeys laden with jars. Avoid the splash of a tipped amphora, and steady yourself when someone shouts too close to your ear. Every sense is overwhelmed, sight, sound. Smell, and yet you're strangely awake, as if the market's pulse has synced with your own heartbeat. You realize this is Athens at its core, messy, vibrant, unfiltered. Nothing polished, everything shouted, bargained, argued, laughed over. And here you are, swept along. Another figure in the ancient crowd, part of the noise, the dust, the unstoppable hum of trade. You push yourself past the busy stalls of the agora, dust clinging to your tunic, and suddenly the noise sharpens, twisting into voices louder, higher, more insistent. Ahead, a cluster of men stand in a circle, arms waving like they're conducting an invisible orchestra, each shout cutting through the sun-warmed air. Welcome to Athenian politics. Forget quiet debate halls or formal councils. Here, persuasion is measured in decibels, volume equals authority, and subtlety is as rare as snow in July. You weave into the edges of the gathering, feeling the heat from the sun and the press of bodies at the same time. The air smells of sweat, olive oil, and recently disturbed dust, and somehow it's energizing. You can hear arguments bouncing off stone walls, overlapping until you're not sure who is arguing about naval strategy and who is simply insisting the neighbor's hair is unacceptable. Every point is punctuated by hand gestures so large they could knock over a child, which, by the way, they almost do more than once. A man with a crimson cloak shouts that Athens must expand its fleet immediately. The crowd roars in approval, but a rival steps forward, voice straining, insisting that ships are already too many, that manpower is stretched, and that even the oars are complaining. You watch, fascinated, as bystanders nod, laugh, and occasionally boo, as if attending an impromptu comedy show disguised as civic debate. You can't help thinking that modern town hall meetings are disappointingly quiet. Here, shouting is the only acceptable argument format. Somewhere along the edge, a boy sells watered-down wine in tiny clay cups, weaving between legs and dodging flying gestures. You consider buying a sip, imagining it might soothe your throat, though you suspect it will taste more like diluted grape sadness than refreshment. Nearby, a woman leans in to whisper that a friend's goat has gotten loose again, and for a moment, everyone pauses, amused. Only in Athens can politics and livestock gossip share the same stage. A lesser-known curiosity flickers in the scene. Some speakers hire friends just to cheer and shout on cue, creating the illusion of popular support. A man with a clever arrangement of hand claps and whoops could make a mediocre point sound decisive. You imagine modern politicians with flash mobs on the street, and it makes you grin. Even historians debate whether this cheer squad tradition skewed votes, but you can see how it would have. The sun climbs, relentless, turning the stone beneath your sandals into slow cooking griddle plates. Voices don't waver, they rise, fall, and rise again. One man gestures so wildly that he nearly topples a jar of olives. Someone nearby laughs, loudly, and suddenly the scene is a mix of tension and comedy. as if the city itself enjoys a performance halfway between tragedy and farce. You watch the interactions, noticing that insults are a form of social currency, calling out another man's haircut, mocking his stance, or pretending to mishear his argument all counts. The louder the insult, the more attention you command. You suppress a laugh at a man dramatically pointing to the sky and claiming the gods themselves would support his side. A seagull immediately delivers a counter-argument, letting loose upon his cloak, and the crowd erupts in laughter. You imagine this is as close to divine intervention as they get. Even the bystanders are performers. Children dart between legs, begging for scraps or water, their laughter a bright punctuation in the dense hum of debate. Old men lean on staffs, pretending to scrutinize policy while clearly enjoying the chaos. Women nod knowingly at each other, whispering judgments that travel faster than the speeches themselves. Each moment is a lesson in Athenian life, engagement, spectacle, and relentless energy. Your ears are ringing, your shoulders tired from the heat and the pressing crowd, and yet something in you feels alive in a way coffee could never replicate. You watch a young orator stretch his hands wide, speaking with passion so absurdly dramatic it borders on theater. Historians still argue how much influence these everyday citizens truly had over policy. But standing here, swept into the noise and spectacle, you understand why the democracy of Athens feels vibrant, messy, and fully human. Finally, you edge backward, carefully avoiding a tripping child and a man waving his staff for emphasis. Your throat aches slightly from all the shouting, though you've only been listening. You can feel the energy of the city lingering in your chest, a pulse that will follow you into the afternoon, reminding you why life here is so demanding and oddly intoxicating. And quietly, you vow to keep your opinions to yourself. Your vocal cords would never survive otherwise. You follow the sun-drenched street away from the political chaos, your sandals stirring up fine dust that clings to your skin. The sounds of the agora fade behind you, replaced by a different kind of energy, rhythmic stomps, grunts, the soft slap of oiled skin against polished wood. You round a corner and find yourself in front of the gymnasium, a place that feels part temple, part theater, part endless sweaty rehearsal. Inside, the air is warm, heavy with the scent of olive oil rubbed into skin, mingling with the tang of sweat that never quite leaves. Men of all ages stretch, lift, run, and wrestle, moving with an intensity that makes your arms ache just from watching. You take a careful step in, noticing the polished floors and the way light spills through the high windows, catching dust motes like tiny floating stars. It's alive, and it's overwhelming in the gentlest way. If you can imagine such a contradiction, some trainers bark instructions, voices echoing against the stone, and you can't help but compare it to a modern boot camp only, with less music and more philosophical murmurs. A man swings a javelin past your ear, and you flinch, realizing that personal space is more of a suggestion than a rule here. Children run along the edges, pretending to wrestle like the older boys, learning the art of movement and endurance in the process. You think of your modern gym, with its air conditioning and carefully sanitized mats, and can't help smirking. This, by contrast, smells like life itself, unfiltered and slightly dangerous. A boy demonstrates a new wrestling hold, and the older men watch, nodding, occasionally offering a loud "no, no," or a chuckle when he nearly topples over. The competition is gentle, playful, yet serious, a dance of skill and pride. You find yourself drawn into their rhythm, feeling the pull of the energy, the shared focus of bodies moving together. Even the smallest slip is noticed, and yet everyone applauds effort as much as success. You pause at the edge, leaning against the cool stone wall, and realize that this place is more than physical training. It is a theater of identity, a proving ground, a lesson in patience and endurance. You notice a man applying oil to his skin before exercise, a ritual that is both practical, keeping the muscles supple, and ceremonial, a daily reminder that the body is as important as the mind. You think of sunscreen, gym mats, and modern hygiene, and can't stop a quiet laugh at how absurdly luxurious your life seems in comparison. The gymnasium smells strong, a pungent perfume of human effort, yet strangely comforting. You can feel the warmth seeping into your bones, a subtle hum that lulls you into focus. Even the sweat has rhythm here, falling in small rivers down skin, dripping onto the floor, marking the passage of time in a tangible way. Some men pause to discuss philosophy while wiping their brows, voices low and thoughtful. One argues whether virtue is taught through the body or the mind, and another counters with a claim so dramatic that you nearly laugh out loud. Historians still debate the balance between athletic and intellectual training in Athens. But standing here, it feels seamless. Body and mind, sweat and thought, inseparable. You notice a group practicing long jumps, dust rising like smoke with each leap. A child follows along, mimicking awkwardly but with determination. A reminder that learning begins early and that persistence is celebrated more than perfection. Nearby, a dog dozes in the sun, tail twitching, blissfully unaware of the coordinated chaos surrounding it. You wonder if pets of the era ever judged humans for overcomplicating simple motion. As you wander toward the exit, watching the athletes stretch and shake off exhaustion, you feel a gentle exhaustion of your own. The sun outside is brighter now, the air sharper, but your muscles carry a memory of movement, and your mind carries the hum of this place. The gymnasium is a temple of living, breathing life, a reminder that Athens thrives not just on debate and trade, but on the rhythm of bodies and the quiet pride of accomplishment. And with that, you step back into the streets, sweat cooling on your skin, dust clinging to your tunic, ready to face the heat of the midday sun with a little more patience and a slightly lighter heart than before. The sun has climbed to its zenith, and the streets of Athens feel like an oven baked by the very gods themselves. Your sandals press against hot stone, each step sending a little jolt of heat up through your feet, as if the city is reminding you it owns your body for the moment. Dust sticks to your sweat-soaked tunic, grains settling into your hair and eyelashes, and you can't help but imagine how refreshing an air-conditioned office would feel right about now. Of course, no one here has ever heard of SPF 50 sunscreen, so you're left to improvise with a scrap of cloth or a hastily grabbed straw hat, both woefully inadequate. You mutter a laugh at the thought of modern humans complaining about a little sun while enduring it from a cushioned chair with a cold drink in hand. People shuffle past, moving slower, fanning themselves with whatever is at hand, pieces of cardboard, even small pieces of pottery. The air is thick with heat, carrying with it the layered scents of sun-baked fish, goat, olive oil, and warm dust. Somehow it all blends into a signature odor of the city, a smell that is as much a part of Athens as the Parthenon looming above. You pause briefly, inhaling deeply. It's pungent, persistent, and, for some reason, oddly comforting. Children dart through narrow alleys barefoot, their laughter ringing sharply against the stone buildings. Some carry tiny clay cups of water, carefully rationed, water dripping slowly over their hands and sometimes into the dust. Their energy is relentless, a reminder that the city moves on even under the most oppressive sun. One little boy nearly bumps into you, grinning with missing teeth, and you can't help but smile. Somehow, even in this heat, life finds its rhythm. You make your way toward a small portico for relief, and the brief shadow feels miraculous. The stones under your hands are cool, offering a counterpoint to the oven-hot streets outside. From here, the city stretches out, rooftops shimmering with heat waves, dust motes dancing like tiny fireflies. The distant murmur of the agora reminds you that trade never truly sleeps. It merely slows, adjusting to the sun's tyranny. Historians still debate whether Athenians observed any kind of formal siesta, but judging by the slow shuffle of people in the streets, a collective understanding of midday pause seems likely. Vendors continue their work, though more languidly. A man leans against a wall, fanning his face with one hand while balancing a basket of figs with the other. Another applies olive oil to his skin before venturing back into the sunlight. The ritual, both practical and symbolic, signaling endurance and readiness. You imagine how odd it would be to see someone in modern clothes dabbing themselves in scented oil to combat heat, and quietly chuckle. The streets echo with a mix of human effort and city sounds. A group of women passes by, carrying large jars of water atop their heads, synchronized like a well-practiced dance troupe. Their expressions are calm, almost serene, but you notice the slightest twinge of strain in their shoulders. You marvel at how everyday tasks are transformed into subtle tests of balance, strength, and resilience. Even minor inconveniences, a stone in a sandal, a wayward piece of dust, become challenges to navigate in this sun-baked maze. As you continue walking, a street vendor catches your attention with a small clay cup of water tipped with a thin slice of citrus. The cool liquid is miraculous, sliding down your throat and offering temporary relief. You sip cautiously, savoring the rarity, imagining modern convenience stores that dispense chilled drinks on demand. Nearby, a few boys mimic adults, fanning themselves and carrying scraps of water, practicing survival in the heat almost as a game. You can't help but smile at their determination, marveling at the education of endurance Athens provides without anyone asking for a lesson plan. You pause again to watch a man demonstrating a bundle of scrolls to a small group of citizens, explaining matters of trade and taxes in rapid, animated gestures. Each movement catches light, dust floating in the sun like particles of gold, and his voice rises and falls, commanding attention despite the oppressive heat. You notice the crowd leaning in, wiping sweat from their foreheads, listening with sharp focus. In a city where heat could sap energy in minutes, attention here is a skill honed against discomfort. A lesser-known curiosity strikes you as you observe. Some Athenians would strategically schedule their public announcements during the hottest part of the day, believing that citizens in physical discomfort were more impressionable, more inclined to agree with persuasive arguments simply to escape the sun's relentless grip. You can't help but picture modern politicians orchestrating press conferences in saunas for effect, and laugh quietly to yourself. The absurdity fits perfectly with your current sweaty predicament. Even the smallest interactions carry texture. A stray dog weaves through the alley, pausing to nap in the scantest patch of shade. Birds circle above, occasionally letting loose their opinions, reminding you of your encounter with the seagull back in the agora. Everywhere, the city is alive with subtle chaos, a dance of humans and animals adjusting, enduring, performing under the glare of an unforgiving midday sun. Finally, as you round a corner and spot the faint shimmer of distant trees offering more consistent shade, you exhale slowly. Your skin is dusted with heat and sweat, the aroma of the streets lingering on you like a badge of survival. Somehow, you've endured the zenith of Athens' sun, and in doing so, you've glimpsed the city's rhythm, relentless, alive, and beautifully unfiltered. You adjust your pace, savoring the relief of cooler air creeping from the shadows, and realize that the midday heat, oppressive as it is, has taught patience, observation, and the subtle art of navigating life in an ancient metropolis. By the time you reach the next portico, sweat drying and dust settling into your hair, a calm settles over you. The city hums around you, slower now, more languid, but still alive. The heat has not defeated you. It has shaped the way you move, the way you notice, and even the way you breathe. And for the first time today, in the thick warmth of Athens, you feel a quiet sense of accomplishment, proof that you can survive, and even find amusement. Under the relentless gaze of the midday sun, the sun finally begins its slow descent, casting long, golden shadows across the streets, and you find yourself making your way toward the evening meal. Athens has been relentless today, from the chaos of the agora to the punishing midday heat. And now, you are ready for something simple, something edible that reminds you, just barely, that humans invented food so you don't have to survive on dust and despair. The dinner table is modesta, low wooden slab, clay cups, and a scattering of plates that smell faintly of salt and oil. You pick up a piece of salted fish, noticing the firm texture and the briny temps that hits your tongue immediately. Compared to modern seafood, it's rough, unrefined, a reminder that preservation here is survival rather than luxury. You imagine sending a delivery app into the past. Yes. Please, 1 margarita pizza, extra cheese. To my apartment in 432 BCE, and can't help laughing at the absurdity. Olives are scattered across the table, their skins shiny and slightly bitter, and a drizzle of olive oil glints in the last rays of sunlight. You pop one into your mouth, chewing slowly, thinking that these small, simple pleasures are the backbone of a city that prides itself on discussion, philosophy, and slightly overcooked debates. Bread, if any, is coarse, more sustenance than comfort, and the wine is thin, diluted with water. A gentle reminder that overindulgence is frowned upon or maybe just logistically difficult. You notice the rhythm of the meal is quiet, not because people are polite, but because the day's exertion has sapped energy. Conversation drifts lazily, punctuated by the occasional laugh or comment about the day's happenings in the streets. You hear someone mention a local poet, their words wandering like smoke in the air, and you imagine modern dinner parties where every story is carefully curated for Instagram. Here, it's messy, imperfect, and surprisingly peaceful. Your fingers feel sticky from the olive oil, the salt clinging to skin, and you imagine the luxury of modern utensils. But the hands-on approach has its own intimacy, a connection between human and sustenance, the kind of sensory engagement that a takeout box could never provide. You sip the watered-down wine, the taste faint but warming, and think of your modern glass of Pinot Noir, chilled and perfectly balanced, and the contrast makes you grin. Nearby, someone dips bread into oil, chewing thoughtfully while listening to a neighbor recount a minor dispute from the agora. You realize that mealtime is also a time for processing the day, sharing minor dramas, and letting the city's energy settle gently into stories. A dog rests near the table, tail flicking, entirely unconcerned by the salt and oil on your fingers, a reminder that life here extends beyond human concerns. As you continue eating, your mind drifts to the broader experience of Athens. Philosophers will debate virtue, citizens will vote on matters of policy, children will race through alleys chasing shadows, and yet here, at this simple evening meal, the city pauses just long enough for everyone to recover. The simplicity of fish, olives, bread, and diluted wine feels almost indulgent after the chaos and sunburn of the day. You catch a glimpse of a neighbor's daughter sneaking a bite of fish when no one is looking, and you can't help but smile. Even the smallest acts of rebellion or pleasure make the day richer, hinting that human nature hasn't changed all that much in the millennia. Your stomach settles, and a quiet contentment washes over you. A gentle satisfaction that comes from having endured, survived, and now nourished yourself in the most Athenian way possible. A subtle breeze drifts in, carrying with it the faint smell of roasting herbs from a nearby stall, mingling with the lingering scent of olive oil and salt. You lean back slightly, feeling the warmth of the late sun on your shoulders. A gentle reminder that even as the day fades, life in Athens continues in all its vibrant, messy, and utterly human glory. And in this simplicity, this slow, deliberate eating and sipping, you find the kind of comfort that even modern luxuries often fail to provide. By the time the meal ends, you feel restored, though still slightly sticky and dusty. A perfect mixture of effort and reward. You rise from the low table, brushing your hands on your tunic, thinking about how extraordinary it is that even in an age without refrigeration, restaurants, or Uber Eats, food could feel this grounding. A slice of pizza would be lovely right now. Yes, but you realize that this, right here, this simple, slightly briny, utterly human dinner is Athens' own kind of luxury, a slow, sensory reminder that survival can also be gentle, if only for a moment. Night falls gently over Athens, the sun dipping behind the marble rooftops and leaving a soft, golden glow that gradually cools into dusky blue. You follow the sound of low laughter and clinking cups down a narrow alley, the air carrying the faint aroma of wine, roasted herbs, and distant wood smoke. Tonight, you are invited, or perhaps politely, corralled into a symposium, a philosopher's dinner where ideas flow as freely as the watered-down wine. You take a deep breath, already anticipating that delicate balance between intellectual stimulation and the mild threat of nodding off. Midday discussion. The room is warm, lit by flickering oil lamps that cast playful shadows across the walls. You notice the cushions strewn across the floor, low tables bearing small clay cups and plates of modest food. Everyone reclines, leaning back with a casual elegance that feels more studied than relaxed, as if their posture itself is part of the performance. The scent of olive oil and sweat mingles faintly with the sweetness of honey cakes left over from earlier, creating a strangely comforting bouquet that reminds you of the way your favorite coffee shop smells when it's empty and quiet. Plato is present. Of course, his long robes falling gracefully as he gestures with a deliberate hand, the tip of a finger stained slightly with wine. He begins to discuss virtue, the nature of the soul, and the proper form of government, but his words are interrupted constantly by small asides, murmurs, and laughter from the other guests. One man demonstrates a rhetorical flourish with such intensity that you worry he might accidentally knock over the table, while another quietly tips back his cup of wine, nodding sagely as if the liquid itself contains the answers to life's greatest mysteries. You chuckle to yourself, imagining a modern TED Talk with people whispering and sipping Merlot, everyone pretending that spilling wine would be an unforgivable faux pas. The wine itself is thin, diluted generously with water, and you sip cautiously, noting the warm tingle as it slides down your throat. It is enough to ease tension, but not enough to make your eyelids heavy, though the combination of soft lamplight, gentle discussion, and the day's heat begins to conspire against you. You adjust your posture slightly, trying to maintain dignity while resisting the urge to rest your head on your arm, the same way a college student fights sleep during a morning lecture, only with more olive oil and less caffeine. Food is passed around, simple yet satisfying. Small pieces of bread, lightly salted fish, olives, and honeyed cakes. You nibble slowly, savoring textures and flavors, though your attention keeps wandering back to the rhythm of voices around you. Philosophical arguments float across the room, sometimes punctuated by laughter or the occasional teasing jab at someone's reasoning. It is both exhausting and intoxicating to follow, a mental exercise that tests your focus while the warmth of the room presses gently against your skin. A conversation starts about love and desire, and the discussion quickly spirals into playful comparisons of modern life, although in jest. Someone remarks, with a wink, that the young men of Athens might have an easier time wooing women if they had access to scented soap and regular baths. The room erupts into quiet laughter, a shared amusement that bridges centuries and reminds you that human nature, oddly enough, has not changed all that much. You bite your lip to suppress your own laugh, trying to remain attentive while secretly imagining how absurdly awkward such a conversation would be if conducted over Zoom today. You glance around and notice a student struggling to keep up with the debate, his eyelids drooping despite best efforts. You sympathize. The day has been long, hot, and full of experiences that would challenge anyone's stamina. A gentle nudge of the elbow from a nearby guest brings you back to Plato's discourse on the essence of knowledge, and you nod along, sipping wine as if it might lend wisdom by osmosis. The juxtaposition of high philosophy and the mundane necessity of staying awake creates a peculiar tension, one that you find both humorous and oddly comforting. Some guests stretch lazily, rubbing their arms or adjusting cushions, while others whisper among themselves about events of the Datha gymnasium, the marketplace, the sunburns endured during midday errands. You notice a young boy hiding a small piece of bread under his tunic, a subtle rebellion that makes you chuckle quietly. The symposium is not just about ideas. It is a stage for human quirks, the small acts of indulgence and subtle mischief that color life with texture and humor. As the evening deepens, Plato introduces a discussion on the ideal state and the virtues of moderation. You sip more wine, feeling the warmth creep slowly through your chest, and realize that focus is beginning to blur. Heads nod slightly, conversations dip into murmurs, and yet, somehow, the intellectual energy persists, threading through the room like a soft, persistent current. Historians still debate whether symposiums were truly about philosophy or simply elaborate social gatherings with the pretense of study. But standing here, it feels inseparable, thought and festivity, learning and laughter entwined. You try to contribute a comment, a tentative observation about justice, and find that it is greeted with nods, gentle correction, and polite laughter. It is as if the act of participating is more important than being correct. the process of engagement valued above all. You notice how the diluted wine loosens tongues and softens tempers, how even disagreements are softened by the shared warmth of the evening and the gentle camaraderie of reclining bodies. Finally, fatigue begins to tug insistently at your limbs. You feel the urge to lower your head onto the table, to let the soft hum of voices and flickering lamps lull you towards sleep. You fight it for a moment, imagining yourself as a serious philosopher, absorbing every syllable, every nuance. But then a small giggle escapes from your own lips, and you realize that surrendering a little to comfort does not diminish wisdom. It simply makes life sweeter. You lean back slightly, letting your gaze wander across the room. Lamps flicker shadows over reclining figures, their animated gestures punctuating arguments that may be profound or perfectly trivial. The taste of honeyed bread lingers, the faint tang of fish on your fingers, the warmth of diluted wine in your chest. Everything blends into a gentle haze of contentment, the kind of peaceful exhaustion that comes from having survived a long, sun-drenched day in Athens, and now participating in the timeless ritual of conversation, indulgence, and laughter by the end of the night. Your eyes are heavy, your mind pleasantly foggy, but the wisdom of the room and the soft intimacy of shared human experience keep you awake just long enough to savor it. You rise eventually, careful not to disturb anyone, stepping out into the cool night air that carries whispers of the city and the faint scent of olive groves beyond the walls. For a moment, you close your eyes and let the warmth of the evening, the hum of conversation, and the echo of Plato's words settle gently into memory, knowing that this night will linger long after you return to your own world. The streets are quieter now, though not silent. Night in Athens carries its own hum, a distant dog barking, the clatter of an errant cart, the whisper of wind through olive trees. You make your way back to your lodging, shoulders heavy from the day, stomach full of salted fish, olives, and the faint warmth of watered-down wine. Every step feels cushioned by fatigue, though the stones beneath your sandals are still stubbornly hard. You realize, with a soft laugh, that modern beds would have felt like clouds after today. Your room is small, a simple space with a thin mattress atop a wooden frame, a wool blanket folded neatly at the foot. There are no pillows stuffed with feathers, no soft linen sheets, only the modest comforts the Athenians managed to conjure. You strip off the dust and sweat of the day, stepping into the cool, fragrant shadows of the room. The faint aroma of olive oil lingers in the air, mingling with the earthy scent of the stones. You think about how modern mattresses would never survive this kind of street-to-bed exposure without a laundry cycle every day, and you chuckle quietly. Lying down, you feel every contour of the firm mattress beneath you. The bed is not welcoming in a luxurious sense, but it holds a peculiar honesty. There is no softness to hide from the day's exertion, no comfort to lull you falsely into sleep. Here, you rest because your body commands it. You adjust slightly, wincing at a crease in the blanket, and find a position that balances firmness with a hint of relief. The night is alive outside your window, faint voices and footsteps drifting in like whispers from another life. You think back on the deather heat, the agora, the public fountains, the midday sun, the dinner, the symposium. Each experience seems sharper now in the quiet of your small room, each sensation lingering, the texture of coarse bread, the bite of briny fish, the diluted warmth of wine, the tug of dusty sandals on tired feet. Even the minor discomforts, the sweat, the sunburn, the sticky tunic, contribute to a strange sense of satisfaction. You survived, you observed, you laughed quietly to yourself. And that is a luxury no modern convenience can replicate outside. A breeze slips through the window, carrying with it the scent of flowering herbs and distant city stone. The gentle movement of air cools your skin, but you feel the residue of warmth lingering in your muscles. You imagine modern fans' worry or the hiss of an air conditioner, but here, the natural rhythm of wind and night sounds creates a lullaby unique to this ancient city. You let it carry you, each gust brushing against your cheek like a gentle hand soothing away tension. Your mind drifts, as it inevitably does, toward the philosophers you saw tonight. Plato, with his gestures and carefully chosen words, seems less imposing in memory than in presence. The thin wine, the gentle laughter, the subtle play of shadows and voices all soften his rigid ideals. You think about the contrast with your own modern life. How many lectures, podcasts, or Zoom meetings could ever match the intimacy of sharing ideas in a warm room, reclining on cushions, body stretched and mind alert, but relaxed? Somehow, the subtle chaos of the evening, combined with the structured conversation, created a harmony that lingers even now. Sleep creeps in slowly, like a gentle tide lapping against the shore of consciousness. You breathe in rhythm with the night, letting the warmth and fatigue settle into your bones. Every sound outside, the faint clink of a cup in another home, the occasional whisper of conversation, the soft rustle of fabric becomes part of the symphony of the city at rest. You allow yourself to sink deeper into the firmness of the mattress, feeling the city's heartbeats sync with your own. Your thoughts wander too small. Peculiar details of the day, the children racing across sun-baked alleys, a stray dog dozing in the shadows, the faint tints of salt and olive oil lingering on your fingers. The ridiculous idea of sending pizza to 432 BCE, each memory floats by, warm and familiar, as if Athens itself is tucking you into bed. You smile softly, imagining someone in the modern world fussing over bedding or climate control, entirely missing the subtle, tactile wisdom of surviving, living, and sleeping in an ancient city. The room darkens gradually, oil lamps extinguished or flickering low in distant homes, leaving only the moonlight and stars to trace faint patterns on the walls. The city hum becomes softer, a distant lullaby, and your body responds naturally. Limbs relax fully, muscles release tension accumulated over hours of walking, standing, and navigating the day. The firm mattress molds just enough, a silent reminder that sleep is earned, not granted. You drift into a slow, gentle rhythm of breath, in and out, letting your thoughts loosen. The day's intensity, the sun's heat, the city's vibrancy all fade into the background. You feel the faint echo of the Symposium's laughter, the agora's bustle, and even the midday sun's insistence. But these now become part of the comforting pattern of experience. Like the gentle lapping of waves on a familiar shore, every sound becomes softer, every sensation more muted. The warmth of the room, the lingering aroma of olive oil and dust, the gentle sway of the night air, they converge to lull you completely. Your eyelids grow heavier, mind slowing, thoughts meandering into soft, dreamlike patterns. Athens wraps around you in a tender embrace, a city alive yet resting, ancient yet intimate, chaotic yet soothing. And so you surrender fully to sleep. A slow exhale carrying away the day, letting the city's night guide you into gentle dreams, where the streets, fountains, and symposiums linger softly, never harsh, always calm. quietly assuring you that you survived, learned, and lived fully in Athens today. End of script. Sweet dreams.